Well, this one already has me gritting my teeth somewhat. How often do you find yourself driving next to somebody who is clearly distracted? Maybe it's their phone or another type of device that is keeping their eyes from the road.
Well, this happens a lot, and the results of distracted driving can be deadly in a lot of cases. And here to talk more about this issue this morning is Heidi Wickstrom. She is an attorney at the law firm of Salvi, Schostok Pritchard. Thank you for joining me this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Sylvia and Scott.
So when we think of distracted driving, the first thing we think about is texting, but there are a lot of other dangerous habits that don't necessarily come to mind. What are those?
So as you said, we always think of texting, right? Because we see people when we're driving on the road looking at their phones or using them. But other habits that are dangerous can be watching videos while driving, eating or drinking or talking to other passengers when you're clearly distracted. And one major distracting feature that is something that we all use but can be very distracting is GPS, whether you're looking at it or listening to it or programming it while driving.
You know, I joke with my friends that almost every day, I take the Ike into work, and it seems like there's a new piece of a car along the side of the road almost daily. And I don't know for a fact that this is distracted driving, but I do witness a lot of it. Has this changed the face of litigation? I mean, is this something that you're seeing more of in court? I would imagine some of these cases, they're kind of tough to pursue.
Yeah, Scott. Thankfully, the police officers in Chicago and in Illinois are pretty good about actually, if they can, cite somebody for texting or being distracted while driving, which helps us in litigation. But also for us, we are seeing more of these cases because there are so many people who are using devices or being distracted in some other way. And when we get people's cell phone records, which is what we can do during litigation, we often find out that they were using their phone or texting or using some sort of app while they're operating a vehicle, which is very dangerous.
You know, I remember when GPS were first put in cars, and I had a car that did not allow me to actually try to use it while I was driving. That's not the case anymore because we have our phones that we can do it with. So are there ways that people could actually try to use these types of systems without continually looking away from the road?
Yeah, I think the most important thing you can do is just program before you start driving, or if you are driving and you realize you need to reprogram, pull over. Even if it will delay you, 20, 30 seconds, a minute, it's safer than doing it while driving. Also, there are ways to just listen to the audio instead of constantly looking over at your GPS or looking down at your phone and trying to reprogram it, which is much, much safer than actually utilizing your phone or punching something into the GPS while you're driving.
Is there hard data that supports the fact that we're seeing more traffic fatalities and that it is linked to distracted driving?
Yeah, unfortunately, and especially during the pandemic, we're seeing more traffic fatalities. But just generally, using a handheld is a 4-time greater risk of causing an accident, which could lead to a fatality. There's a lot of issues with teens using handheld devices while driving. This is a big problem, not only in litigation, but just with generally what we're seeing in society and with police officers issuing tickets and citations. It's an epidemic, and it's a real problem on the roads.
Well, you just mentioned that's a problem with teens, and I'm curious, are we seeing a certain age group that is the biggest issue with this? Is it teenagers? Is it older people? What have you guys seen?
Generally, I would say teens and younger people who may not have as much experience driving. So when you're pairing a less experienced driver with someone who may also be using their phone or being distracted in some other way, perhaps talking to passengers or using a GPS, it can be very dangerous. And we are seeing that issue with teens, and that I think 40% of teens have reported either using a handheld device or being in a vehicle with someone who was using a handheld device, which is very dangerous.
Yeah, it's a great point because a lot of parents will limit how many people can be in their teen's car when they're driving, but it's hard to continually monitor them when they're using devices. Heidi Wickstrom, thanks so much. Important information this morning.
Thank you for having me.